Breath of the Wild. It's a game that consumed all of my time in the summer of 2017. During that summer, I felt like I was the happiest I had ever been in my entire life. The world consumed me, encapsulated me. The mysteries of Hyrule kept me searching, and the world kept me on my toes. I would spend hours just roaming around Hyrule, trying to see if there were any little secrets I could find. Breath of the Wild is the game that, in all honesty, changed my life. It was a game that I didn't know I needed, but was the game I absolutely wanted at the time. The game was vast and the world was dense with Easter eggs and little bits of lore that gave you an idea of what happened to that place, but you had to come up with what happened yourself. A lot of the world was up to your interpretation. But I digress. Breath of the Wild is my favorite game of all time. A game that changed my outlook on what I desired in a video game. A game that changed my perception on what freedom was in a video game. A game that cultivated a deep appreciation for well-designed open-world games. I wouldn't love Elden Ring nearly as much if I hadn't played Breath of the Wild. Now, with the sequel around a couple hours away, I reminisce on my time with Breath of the Wild. And I can say that it created some of my favorite moments in gaming, or even my life as a whole. So to say goodbye to Breath of the Wild, I want to share a couple of stories of some of my favorite moments in Breath of the Wild, to help myself say goodbye, and to let myself move on to a possibly greater experience in Tears of the Kingdom. My first experience was the first day I got to play the game. I didn't own any consoles at the time, and the only friend I had who had a Switch let me come over and make a profile to let me play the game. He had finished his first play session and said that he would let me play for a bit. I booted up the game and I awakened in the Shrine of Resurrection. I remember climbing the wall and being shown the first cutscene of the game. I was greeted with one of the most beautiful sights I had seen in a video game at the time. It was gorgeous. Immediately, all I could see were places I wanted to go, things I wanted to explore or visit, and areas I immediately recognized from some of my favorite Zelda games. It was magical. I was hooked. I hadn't even started exploring the Great Plateau. It was so big, and it was a moment that seared itself into my memories. A moment that I won't forget. I ended up playing the game for 9 hours straight at his house. I was there until 11 p.m., which was late at the time. In that first play session, I made many memories. It's an experience I'll never forget. The second experience was not far off from the first one. I had just finished the Great Plateau, and it was so massive. All I had ever played at the time that was close to the scale of the Great Plateau was other Zelda games like Twilight Princess. I remember getting the map fragment for the Great Plateau and thinking, holy, this place is so big. This is just the tutorial area? When I finally finished the Great Plateau, I was directed to Kakariko Village. I remember immediately trying to make it out to the tower by the dueling peaks. I climbed the tower and looked out at the vastness of Hyrule one more time. I then went to put my Sheikah Slate to the pedestal to get the map fragment. I vividly remember the outline for the map showing up, and the piece of the map I had gotten was 3 times bigger than the entirety of the Great Plateau. I remember having to just sit back and take it in. Just let the knowledge simmer that the entirety of the Great Plateau paled in comparison to the area I just unlocked, which paled in comparison to the entire map. And it made me so happy. It's another memory I'll never forget. The last memory is a simple and short one. I remember unlocking the map fragment and recognizing the Lost Woods for the first time. I walked in as fast as I could. I still only had 6 hearts. I remember trying to figure out the puzzle to get through the Lost Woods, and I never ended up figuring it out. So I just brute forced my way through, and I came across the Master Sword. The legendary blade. I didn't even know if anyone else knew how to get it at the time, since it was only the 3rd day. I remember trying to pull the sword out and almost dying. So, like any normal person, I tried again, and immediately died. I would come back every time I got a new heart just to die. Until I finally got my 13th heart, and the sword came out. I felt so accomplished. I felt so happy. I'd found the Master Sword in my own way, and found out how to get it on my own. It felt so rewarding. I felt like I'd stumbled on a lost treasure. The feeling was something that could never be replicated today, especially with how many guides there are telling you exactly where things are the day of release. It's another memory I'll never forget. So, after all that, those are my 3 most iconic memories from playing Breath of the Wild. I still can't believe it was 6 years ago. I had no idea that a game could be so impactful. Breath of the Wild was the game that impacted me the most in my life. And now it's time to say goodbye. With the sequel right around the corner, I have little reason to go back and re-experience Breath of the Wild. So with that in mind, goodbye, Breath of the Wild. Thank you for everything.